Hello YouTube, Jazza here. So, you may have noticed, if you're vaguely aware on social media, that this month is LGBT Pride Month, where people are proud to be LGBT. And in that vein, the lovely people at Penguin, who publish books, gave me a few LGBT books to kind of talk about and review. And so I'm going to go through some of these books, and we can talk about these in the comments and all of that kind of stuff. Sound good? Good. The first one is Will Grayson, which is the only John Green book I haven't read, and it's also by David Levithan, and is phenomenal, actually. In terms of like the way it's written, you can really tell that the chapters that John Green wrote are John Green chapters. It's very much got the same kind of prose as a lot of his stuff. Very convoluted sentences that are incredibly articulate, use lots and lots of adjectives, and are kind of like the kind of prose that a teenager would never actually use, but is amazing to read and really, really cool. And it's kind of like one chapter is written by John Green, one chapter is written by David Levithan, who wrote Boy Meets Boy and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. And this is kind of a book made, I think, more for the queer kid's best friend in high school, and there's a musical involved, and it's just really nicely written. And so I'm dyslexic, I struggle with reading, I'm not very quick at reading, and I've gotten a good way through this. And I'm really enjoying the journey, and so, you know what, if you're somebody on YouTube who hasn't read John Green books before, try Will Grayson. It's a lot of fun. Not everything that Penguin sent me was YA. This is a classic book by Jeanette Winterson called Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, and it's kind of really quite sad. It's a semi-autobiographical book about her upbringing in a very Christian, traditional background, and how she ends up figuring out that she's gay. As I said, it's really, really heavy, but also, like I said, I struggle with reading quite a lot, but I'm eating through this like nobody's business. And Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit is like a classic in the British LGBT genre, and is really an interesting insight into the psyche of somebody who grows up in such a closed world, and then she goes to school and interacts with other kids for the first time, and it's a really interesting insight. So that's Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, Jeanette Winterson. I recommend. They sent me this book, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens, and did a really cool thing where it's Jazza versus the Homo Sapiens. I see what you did there, Penguin. Very clever. Also awkwardly noticed the Chinese takeaway menu being used as a bookmark. Classy. As I said, I've only read a few chapters of this, but every page there's something new that is resonating with me, from the email exchanges that are like pages and pages long between a couple of gay kids who haven't met in real life yet, and they end up being like, oh, I've never spoken to somebody like this before, and oh, I'm falling in love with you, all over email. And this is all stuff that I did when I was a teenager, coming into terms with my sexuality in like the mid-noughties. The protagonist at one point talks about the fact that he realised that he was gay, and then in spite of that continued having girlfriends, and that's something that I did when I was kind of coming to terms with my sexuality as well. Like, I knew I was gay, but I continued seeing girls, like kind of in the hope that, oh, this is probably like a temporary thing. The author, Becky Albertalli, really sums it up very well in this paragraph and says, I guess it was easy being in relationships where I didn't really have to think about all the tiny humiliations that come with being attracted to somebody. It's like, I get along with girls, kissing them is fine, dating them was really manageable. And that was exactly the pragmatic thought that I had when I was still dating girls, despite the fact that I knew my sexuality. And it makes you feel like really guilty and crappy, but also it's just kind of what happens when you're wrestling with your sexuality. Honestly, page after page after page of this that I'm reading is just me being like, yeah, that happened. Yeah, that happened too. It's a really cool book. It's Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. Really, really cool book. There's a load of titles that Penguin sent me that I'm not going to be reviewing in this video, but you can watch me review them over on their channel. Like, check out these books, because when I was growing up I didn't read any queer fiction, especially young adult stuff. And I think that that's really important, that there is like queer representation in like the books and the media that we're reading, especially for kids who are struggling with their own sexuality. Not just for the gay kids, but for the kids who are kind of having to deal with other people's homosexuality. Will Grayson is a really good example of that, of how to be a good friend to a gay person. And I feel like that's really important. That's really positive messages to send across to young kids who are in their formative years, right? So go over to their channel, check out the stuff that they do that is all really book orientated. I've had a lot of fun kind of trying to plough through these books as much as I can, and I can't wait to like finish them all. It's been really cool and I love the opportunity to do this. Let me know if you might want me to do some more in-depth book reviews. Maybe I'll become like a semi-booktuber. Maybe. Who knows? We will see. I would like it if you liked this video and subscribed. That would be cool. Otherwise, I've been rhymingwithoranges, and I will see you guys soon, next week hopefully. Toodaloo.